Cause I'm in prison for a crime that I didn't commit. I'm representing for all the ones that been through this shit. Cause if it lately, man, it seems that I'm paying a price. And y'all know I'm tired of being a sacrifice.
My name is Leon Benson, and I'm 47 years old, and I just came home after being wrongfully incarcerated for 25 years. Definitely, being trapped in the system is much like being trapped in the hood, because they both are state of minds. It make me think about a Bible verse. Hebrews 13:3. Remember those in prison as if you are their fellow prisoners. And what I liken that to is a mentality. So I got to remember those in the prison of the hood mentality, of, the prison mentality. But with me being trapped within the system, it made me realize that it was hard. It was times, coming in at the age of 22, former drug dealer, but having this case of a crime that you didn't commit, the murder of, a middle class, white dude. And at the time in 98, when this crime happened, it was rare. A lot of people don't know that cross-race crime is very rare. Usually it's white on white, black on black, brown on brown. And it's rare to have a cross-racial crime. And so, that crime happened. It was basically the privilege against the poor urban community. Everybody involved in the trial, they were people from the streets, people who had records. And, the state's only eyewitness being a Caucasian woman who said she seen somebody commit a crime from 50 yards away at night with her headlights, claiming her headlights was illuminating. But the irony of it is, she said she seen a dark-skinned male who was 5'8". I'm 5'10", and I'm not dark-skinned. And in trial, she even said I was light-skinned. They said, "Ma'am, could you tell us the color of the defendant?" She said, "He's light-skinned, right?" I was like, wow. And to add insult to injury, she had Coke bottle glasses, right? Like, I couldn't make this up, right? I'm like, man, so, my first trial ended in a hung jury. 7 not guilty, 5 for guilty. So I thought my second trial would really, vindicate me. But it didn't. It was much worse than the first trial because I was found guilty of murder. So I go to prison. I'm sentenced to 60 years. My family devastated. I'm devastated. I can't believe it. I'm in shock. Some people know of the delusion of reprieve, right? So this is a term I learned later on of my behavior. So the delusion of reprieve, usually it happen to people that's finna get a death sentence. And they like, man, they're gonna stop this at any time. They're gonna stop this and they just gonna let me go. They're gonna let me go. They ain't gonna kill me. Well, mine wasn't as extreme, but extreme in its own way, because it was, man, they gonna let me go. They gonna come get me. And for a while, I used to sleep in my coat. I said, man, because I'm finna go home. Y'all are tripping, right? But that never came. It's a real, sometimes, as men, we get confronted with situations that overwhelm us. I was overwhelmed. At first I was playing these little penny ante games, with the system, trying to be arrogant and cute. You see what I'm saying? But once you really know you own that van, you there, and the door is shut, boom. I'm like, man, I'm like really stuck. Like, this is for real. Like, wait, am I really here? So it's like a shocking feeling. You see your whole life flash before your face. Before your face, your whole life flash. You think about time. But when you 22 years old, you don't have a real conception of time. 10 years look like a lifetime to you. They gave me 60. I was like, man, and I had to deal with it. It was shocking. It was horrifying. As soon as I came through the door, though, I immediately was working on my case. I think I even sent my first letter to the Indiana Innocence Project as early as 2001 when they opened, right? I was on the ball, doing that. I had a lawyer coming into prison that me and my family hired. And this lawyer, Richard Kiefer was his name. He did a wonderful job on my appeal, in retrospect, when I started to understand the law. And I put in a lot of hope with him. My first appeal was in for a long time, longer than average. It was just like 2 years, right? And usually when a direct appeal is in that long, you're going to get some play. It was a lot of hope start to develop. And plus I was innocent, but something happened in the midst of that. I got misidentified in a prison riot. And I was placed on solitary confinement. And I would be there for the next decade, right? I'm not knowing that, but I'm passing through this particular journey, and I passed into a very, very rough patch. The make or break moment. I go to solitary, and I'm locked in 2001 in November. I go in, and I'm like, I shouldn't even be in prison, but I'm in solitary. Y'all playing. Somebody lied on me, said I participated in a riot. They got confidential informants in prison. Somebody lied. Somebody was trying to get moved somewhere, probably used me. But the thing about this moment was, this is my first time in solitary confinement, my first time in prison, wrongfully incarcerated, wrongfully in solitary confinement. And somebody raped my sister. And I couldn't do nothing about it. I was like, oh man, this is December. January came, my stepfather died. I'm like, man. Same month, my grandfather died. I didn't want to see the chaplain no more. When I seen the chaplain, I was like, oh man, there's somebody else dead. To add, man, more gas to the flames. That February, my direct appeal was denied. And it gets even worse. My kid's mother, although I respect that she was able to hold my kids down while I was gone, and I know it's hard being a single mother, or a woman for that matter, raising 2 kids, 3 for that matter. But the money that we were supposed to be saving up, she didn't have nothing. I couldn't believe it. It should have been at least $100K. I had nothing. So at that point, man, I was at my low. I was on the floor. I was broken into a million pieces, right? I was getting return to sender on my mail. I had to figure it out. Let me try to figure out this law. But in that time, man, a big part of me died. And can never return. I mourned money. I mourned it, right? I was like, oh man, money got to die, money, right? Because I knew I needed it so much, but I mourned it. It was the death of money for me. And when I emerged out of this dark cloud of my imprisonment, which the make or break moment, I always say, when I emerged out of there, I started to accept my circumstances, not my situation. It's important that we accept our circumstances. Circumstances would be if somebody hit you, blindside you and hit you in the eye. The circumstance is you have a black eye. You need to attend to your black eye before you get your leg back. That's circumstances. The situation is this dude or whoever hit you, and that's not correct. So the situation that I'm talking about is the injustice, but the circumstances for now is I'm locked in this cell. So I got to figure out what I can do, use the tools that's available. Before coming in prison, I didn't have no real formal education. I got my GED while I was waiting on my murder trial. And, I just didn't know a lot of things. I was really just ignorant about a lot of stuff. But one thing I could do is communicate through hip hop. And, I got some pushback at the time. I was really heavy in my craft, like over the range, but I had some guys that was there like, man, hey, you putting together a rap, you need to put together a brief. You know what I mean? Hey, you use all them words, you can put your words together like that. Hey, you need to research the law and give a legal argument, And so, I started to study the law and understand how it works. I even took a law course to be a paralegal, and I learned how to read case laws, how to formulate legal arguments in state and federal court, in criminal situations as well as civil. Then I started to learn how to network. Some guys put me up onto a prison pen pal site at the time in Indiana, and I put my case up on there. I spent my last $100 to my name on that thing, right? I rewrote that mug about 5 times, but it was really a hit. This is like 2002, 3. And at this time, I transferred from disciplinary segregation to administrative segregation, and this is when all these letters start to hit. All these letters start to hit from different people that I was writing from around the world. It was real inspiring, right? To get these letters from people that I never met, from different countries, different walks of life. And out of that horrible moment, that was the silver lining in it, where I started to do the things that I could do while I was in solitary, while you deprived of everything, proper food. It's sensory deprivation, and there the lights are on 24/7. So at a certain point, you have to pivot yourself in your situation by accepting your circumstances. So I'm in solitary. I know that I don't have a lot of options but to write and to read and to educate myself about what I can do. And so I kept the fight up, messing with the public defender's office. And my case they didn't handle my case right in Indiana Public Defender's Office. They tried to get me to have just one issue out of all the issues I had. And I wasn't going for that. So I went pro se in 2006. So from 2006 to 2012, I was pro se. It was a lot of things that was happening in there. Even though I was networking, and I got to the point where my case was on the internet, and people was reaching out. When I reflect back, it make me think about a Frederick Douglass quote. He said, I'm just paraphrasing, in his narratives, he said, a man without power can only be pitied for so long if he don't show no force. I was like, man, so I always showed force. At the end of the day, I had to get up off the floor and I had to show people my worth. Sometimes people don't recognize worth. They don't know what it looked like. So you get overlooked. You become a throwaway still. Even if that's so, you still have to keep on pushing. I liken it to any great athlete, right? Any great athlete, you persevere, man. You got to shoot the shot. You got to take the shot. You got to, make it happen. You got to be the badger in a situation going into a wasp nest trying to get honey. You're going to get stung, and that's part of it. So it was that type of mentality to it. And, the philosophy of reading these great thinkers, I didn't just read them to be thinking like, oh, I want to be like Aristotle, or I want to be like, Socrates or Aesop or, Sartre, Nietzsche or Elijah Muhammad. It wasn't that. I was reading that to try to understand my situation. And that's what made that stuff different. Because I'm reading it to find something applicable that I can apply to my situation. And sometimes I didn't, right? And it came on the back end. So, going through that whole solitary experience was really powerful for me. It really set the groundwork on me understanding that it is man that gives the world meaning. We all have choices. I even read it in the Bible. Deuteronomy 30:19. I'm just paraphrasing. It says, today you got a choice between life and death. And what I got for you, don't wait for nobody to ascend from heaven to tell you what it's like. Don't wait for nobody to come from overseas to tell you what it's like. What I got for you today is already on your lips and your heart. I was like, wow, man. If that wasn't existential, I don't know what is, right? Free will. He said, don't wait for nobody to come out the sky. And then I read Psalms 82. It said, God resides around the congregation of gods. He said, y'all are gods, but you would die as princes. I'm like, man, the Bible's saying this. And then, it's just so many things. And I started to be empowered by, these words from these ancient books, whether it was the I Ching, whether it was the Five Rings, whether it was Sun Tzu, or Machiavelli, or Lao Tzu. I really started to, really dwell on a lot of their lessons. And again, to make it applicable to my life and what I was doing. And it really helped. It helped out a lot, with my well-being when I was there. I wouldn't know the impact of this stuff until, years and years later. But that was the incubation I was in. We had study groups over the range amid the craziness that was on this lockup. And you always had to confront yourself. I was my biggest obstacle. Even though I was innocent, I chose not to go to school. I chose to do all these other things that wasn't beneficial to me or my family. I was able to look in the mirror and say that to myself, and I tell people all the time, you got to get past your 7 devils before you see God. Those 7 devils are in you. It ain't nobody with a red tail, with some pitchforks and some horns coming out their head. Satan is you in your lower self. And, being innocent, it can make you justify a lot of things. That's the devil. Man, I'm innocent. I don't got to do that. I don't got to read nothing. Man, I'm innocent. You should help me just because. It don't work like that. Everybody got to put their work in, homie. You hear me? Everybody. So, in those moments right there, I really was finding myself growing a lot. And then I came into a lot of conflict with my case. In 2009, a lawyer jumped on my case without my permission. I had everything set up. I even found an eyewitness who seen somebody else commit the crime. A statement that police had the whole time. They never brought him to trial. Come to find out, he was in a work release center, ironically down the street from where the crime happened at in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I found him though, but this lawyer jumped on my case, and the thing about it, you gotta, in Indiana courts, it's non-compliance. When you file a motion and they send you a non-compliance motion, that's because you got a lawyer on your case. You only can speak through your lawyer. So I'm like, what's going on? And this dude then jumped on my case like he's my lawyer. I'm like, man, so I went through a whole fiasco with that, and I had to withdraw without prejudice, meaning I can file in another time. So I went through the whole civil suit process and whatnot, and I came up short on that. And then I was stuck because I knew I ran out my federal time. But I was like, man, I still got to push on. I'm gonna go get this lawyer. I'm gonna find a lawyer. So I eventually got off lockup after nearly 10 years of being locked up in solitary. I got out in 2011, and I was shipped to population. It felt weird, going into population and just being around people for a while, but I adjusted, to my surroundings. And, everything about prison is abnormal. But I guess I felt normal, you know what I mean? After you left a place like that. And, I eventually got another lawyer. And, it didn't work out with this guy. This guy, he really didn't have my best interest. And I knew it, even though, I paid him $20,000. $20,000. Probably a little more on expenses. He didn't do nothing. So with this lawyer that I was telling you about, he really messed up. I had everything, even that eyewitness now. He was there, and we did a PC hearing and everything. But this guy, this lawyer, he acted like he couldn't find his eyewitness. He's like, he ain't gonna show up. And my sister happened to have a witness on call and called him. He was like, ain't nobody call me. I'm ready. This the PC. I was like, oh man, he wanted him. Right? So my man, he came and he testified on my behalf. My family was there, but a lot of people didn't know. I didn't know at the time until I got home that my lawyer tried to undermine this situation. right? Obviously, you got a witness who should have testified in the trial, who had already gave police a statement, and he's finna testify in court. And you say you can't find him, and my sister just called him, and he said nobody called him. Yeah, so my PC got denied. Now, I went through the process of appealing it and everything. This is in 17, and then the end of my appeal process ended in 18. And I was devastated, man. I was. I admit I was devastated, but I worked through it. We got to work. The work that I was doing at the time, I was doing a lot of good work on the inside. You know, I had put down some of my childish things, you know, trying to hustle and things like that. And as early as 2015, I seen a light of change that I needed to make, because I had done everything my way. And at that point, I felt like I needed to follow the path, you know, of the Creator, Yahweh, as I like to deal with the tradition of the ancient Israelites. They are the authors of the Bible. And from my studies in etymology, you know, the root meaning of words, I knew if I wanted to master the Bible, I needed to know how to translate it into Hebrew. And, you know, once I started doing that, I started seeing something different. In the Bible, I started seeing the key words, what things mean, and it really empowered me. Not some spookism, and God is gonna knock down the walls. No, it was a practice. It's a practice, right? So I had to practice it out. I had to, you know what I mean, be the message that you bring, you know. Stop being, you know, double-minded. I had one mind, even in prison. So if I was there to help them, I was there to help. And I helped, you know, educate guys in different programs. The Band of Brothers on the inside was a start. I was a mentor in that. Then, you know, I was able to mentor in the Hebrew Israelite community that was there. It was thriving. I was in charge of the praise team and the music, and we had a real nice selection of music. And I gave sermons. I done gave over hundreds of sermons, you know, for the brothers. And then I was able to do True Self, was another program I facilitated in. And one of the programs I was able to do that was really enlightening was The Streets Don't Love You Back. The Streets Don't Love You Back. Prevention and Life Skills course. I was helping the inmates, you know. I liked the smarter goals that was in there. I think it was specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timetable, smart goals. That was something that was really big about the course. And just about how pharmaceuticals, you know, kind of, you know, got a lot of people on drugs. A lot of people in the class, even prisoners, didn't realize that prescription drugs is drug use. You using drugs, like you're becoming addicted. And the prevention program really, you know, gave me a lot of insights about, you know, drug use, drug rehabilitation. And it made me rethink a lot of things. And it made me challenge the administration there that this program should be a curriculum in things that you do. You know, I made it a curriculum first in the True Self program. right? It was a curriculum in there that you needed to pass this course, to pass this whole program.